BF21 is sponsored by the Climate Council of Greater Kansas City and KKFI 90.1 FM, Kansas City Community Radio. This is Renewable Energy Programs and Incentives. Please welcome your host, Philip Fracica.
Hey, hello, good afternoon, everybody. Bob, thank you very much for the introduction. And I think that did a good job of setting up what we're going to be talking about today. So it's going to be covering clean energy incentives and programs around Kansas City. So up here at the top, I have energy efficiency for all, which I'm going to explain a little bit further in the next slide. And then Renew Missouri is the nonprofit I work for. We're a 501c3 dedicated to advancing renewable energy and energy efficiency policies across the state of Missouri. I am in our Kansas City office. Oh,
share your slideshow.
Oh, hold up. Thank you, Bob. There you go. How's that? Oh, it's just me. Okay. Got it. There we go. Is that better?
That's great.
Okay. So thank you, Bob. As I was saying, Renew Missouri up here at the top is a nonprofit that I work for. Then Energy Efficiency for All is a project that we are a part of here in Missouri. So Energy Efficiency for All is a national movement. It's comprised of fellow nonprofit organizations throughout the country. As you see here, we have these blue marks for the 12 states that there are EFA projects. And our mission as a group is to make multifamily housing healthy and affordable through energy efficiency programs. The goal throughout these 12 states is to reach 5 million homes to get them energy savings. And specifically in multifamily, we're looking at renter properties, and it's usually something that's going to be a 5+ unit property. So when talking about multifamily properties and affordable housing in general, we kind of have to paint the picture of why there's a difference, why it matters. So if you look here on the left, we have a master meter property example, and that would be a situation where a multifamily building owner is paying the bill for the whole property. So each tenant is going to be getting a fixed charge on their bill, regardless of how much they use. And that doesn't really send any conservation messages or really any consideration or incentive to that tenant in terms of how their energy usage is impacting their carbon footprint or how that's impacting the building owner's costs at the end of the day. So we've seen a lot of individual metered properties because there is this split incentive that exists that for the tenant, if they have units and have measures in those units that can reduce their energy usage, that's really great for them. And if it's an upgrade to the building that helps the whole property, in a case of a master meter property, that's really great for the owner. Because if they do an HVAC, furnace, boiler replacement, that's going to serve the whole building, but it might not actually go into the units themselves. So that really helps the owner reduce that usage, while the tenant might actually benefit more if they had something like an in-unit incentive program. So because of this issue, we've been trying to resolve this here with utilities like Evergy and Spire and Ameren over on the eastern side of Missouri. So we're talking about multifamily because it's often overlooked. If you look here at this blue bar, this is showing the share of utility spending on residential energy efficiency programs broadly. And then this yellow bar is looking at the multifamily share of the housing market. So looking at all these cities from Austin to San Diego, Detroit is really the only one that's even close to having a fair divide in terms of the dollars spent for residential energy efficiency actually covering multifamily housing stock in that city. So that's something that we'd like to get closer to here locally in Kansas City and St. Louis, and as well as in parts of Kansas. So when talking about energy burden, one site I really like and just a great resource, I'd recommend this to anybody if you want to learn more about energy burden in your community, in your county, in your state. It's Home Energy Affordability Gap. You can just look it up online. If you type that in, it'll come up. They have really good maps and information looking at energy burden by household and poverty level distinctions. So you can really get into it in terms of, you know, who's hurting where, how many people is this affecting. So I, for this example, pulled out Jackson County, Missouri, and I believe this data is from 2019. They do have 2020 data now online. So we were looking at a $1,500 individual household shortfall due to utility bills. This affected 22,295 households in the county. Their aggregate shortfall was $33 million behind on their utility bills, and they're facing a 26.7% home energy burden. So an energy burden is the amount of your income that gets spent towards your utility costs. So looking here, the highest earners in Jackson County only have an energy burden of 5.5%. So not only do they have more money available to them, the amount of money that they're spending on utility bills is significantly less, and it's usually in a larger property with a higher footprint. So this is something that we definitely need to fix. There are also a lot of commonalities between communities of color that are being impacted in this high home energy burden, as opposed to non-minority households being at the higher end and not facing an energy burden, especially in Kansas City and St. Louis. So here we're looking at annual utility energy efficiency program spending in billions of dollars. This is not just locally, but in the whole country. So we're looking at projected spending of $15.6 billion on energy efficiency over the next 4 years, back to it being about 7.2 billion in 2011. As you can see, it's been almost doubling every 4 or 5 years. Really, the largest gap is 2011 to 2025. So we're really hopeful that that trend can continue to shift towards more spending to really help folks reduce the energy burden they face. So this map here depicts the various service territories of utilities across the state of Missouri. So we have Ameren, Evergy, Springfield City Utilities, Liberty out of Joplin, IPL, which is Independence Power and Light, Independence, Missouri, then Columbia Water and Light in Columbia, and then everywhere else in the state. So we have roughly 380,000 multifamily properties. That would be large multifamily in the state of Missouri, or rather, sorry, we have 380,000 units in the state of Missouri, and we have 211,000 of those as affordable multifamily. And if they're affordable, they're more likely to qualify for utility programs and for government subsidized programs like low-income home energy assistance programs and weatherization. There we go. So when looking at where are these savings, how are we saving energy usage through energy efficiency? Where is this actually going in a property? So roughly half of the savings are related to heating or cooling. That can vary in terms of space heating on here, if you're doing the whole building, if you're specifically doing water heating measures. And then the other part of that is going to be lighting and the plug load. And that also includes like vampire loads that you'll see if you leave something plugged in, even though it's not actively being used, it'll still be using a little bit of electricity just being plugged in to the outlet. So here we have identified the EFA states. This was done through Energy Efficiency for All, this research. That's why we don't have neighboring or Midwest states predominantly here, but really just those states that they were looking at through this study. So they found that the no NEBs, and NEBs are industry term for non-energy benefits, when looking at how you can evaluate energy efficiency and renewable energy investments in terms of benefits beyond just the economic ones that you can see right away, such as like health impacts, environmental impacts, carbon benefits from taking this kind of action. So we're seeing the maximum achievable potential for Missouri would be 358 gigawatt hours. If we don't include those extra environmental costs, those externalities, and we're really just looking at the economics, and it'd be 15% of the peak load, which is pretty significant. And if we counted the NEB side of it, it'd be a 20%. So that'd be a fifth of the current peak load the utilities are seeing could be cut out just through energy efficiency, which would really reduce their pollution. So the results from the study found that there was a 1.9 benefit to cost ratio for electric energy efficiency programs, which is something that we already know, but it just putting the math behind, hey, if you put money into energy efficiency upgrades, the benefits will exceed the cost by almost 2. And then if you have the case here of you have the non-energy benefits, so if we're including those externalities that would have community impacts to them, we're looking at almost 3 times the benefit to cost ratio. So it really makes a lot of sense to do energy efficiency, and it makes even more sense if you're going for the most energy burden households, the units and large properties that have historically been overlooked, because you're going to really get the best bang for your buck in terms of usage. So To get away from multifamily a little bit and just to talk broadly about energy efficiency, here is a screenshot of a website that we've put together called mosaves.com. I'll have a link to it in the slides and show it at the end again. But here we have gone through every utility, large utility in the state of Missouri, and put details to their energy efficiency programs. So for Evergy, if you're a customer right now, if you go to their website and enter in your address, it'll pop up immediately with, hey, here are the programs available to you in your building type that you can get today. Since I didn't want to have to show that for me as an Evergy customer, what that looked like, I went to go with this to give you an idea of, regardless of your property, of what you could get. So they have a heating and cooling rebate. They have an LED discount for LED lights. They have partnered for weatherization efforts. They also offer an income eligible multifamily program that has a few different components that I'll be getting into. They also have a discount for a thermostat for home, and they also have insulation and air sealing rebates in the home as well. We also have Spire through a lot of the state of Missouri, not just around Kansas City, Missouri, but in St. Louis and other parts as well. They have a lot of residential programs available to customers. They have gas water heater rebates, other space water heating system rebates, boiler furnace rebates, and they also have a thermostat rebate. And you can find all of that on Most Saves or on Spire's website as well. Let's see. So I have a question here from Norm. Just want to answer this real quick. So Norm asked, are NEBs just looking at reducing electricity use, or does it address moving from fossil power to renewable power? So the non-energy benefits look at everything outside of reducing electricity use. So it's every benefit that is not energy specific. So that would address moving from fossil fuel to renewable power, because you're going to account for all of the environmental benefits from that energy efficiency work that has been completed. And you can do it a lot of different ways. Different states and commissions have valued it at different levels. It's something that we at Renew Missouri would like for the state of Missouri to have in our quantification of our energy efficiency savings, because I think we would see a much higher justification for money spent by customers for these types of programs, because we're really going to increase our impact and reduce our carbon footprint if we're able to really quantify and include all the savings from this kind of work. And same thing with renewable systems, to be able to fully impact or count the impacts of those savings. So for the multifamily program specifically, Evergy and Spire have been partnering together to do co-delivery for customers who have both gas and electric service through the utilities. They're also doing it on the eastern side of the state with Ameren and Spire to have a similar approach to really maximize the savings while they're in a home, in a business, to do as much work as possible while they're already there. So the most available program that they have for low-income qualifying customers is they have an energy savings kit. Within that kit, they have LED light bulbs, faucet aerators, efficient flow shower heads to reduce water usage. They have a water heater pipe wrap to put it on the water heater, and they have up to 2 smart power strips. So going back to this slide here, those measures will cover for heating and cooling. It'll help with water heating. It'll help with lighting and the plug load, vampire load issue here. So it's not getting to everything here, but it's getting to most of them. And to my previous point in the split incentive, all of these measures here are targeted towards the tenant. So all of these are going to provide savings right away to a tenant. All they have to do to get it is ask for their building owner to allow the utility to come in and do the work in their unit, or to give them the kit in some cases, and to let them as the tenant do the installs themselves. So that is really just the low-hanging fruit of it. The larger part of it, and where more of the money is for the custom rebate program for the multifamily owners. So this is looking at doing that whole building retrofit. If you're replacing, the whole furnace system, HVAC replacement, having a new boiler can get pretty pricey. So they're looking at offering utility rebates through both Evergy and Spire to do this kind of work. So it's also a little tricky when you get into the multifamily, because you can have mixed use properties. So you might have some market rate units, you might have partially subsidized, fully subsidized, all in one property. So to qualify for this type of a program, half of the residents have to be at or below 200% of the federal poverty limit, which would count towards getting things like low-income housing tax credits and other assistance programs. So if 50% of the residents would qualify for that, then the whole building can get these savings through upgrades. So they have a very long list of measures. I'm not going to go through every single one of them because I don't have enough time today to do that. But if you are a building owner or know one that could benefit from this, if you go to their website, it'll have everything listed. But really quickly, it's just insulation, HVAC, thermostats, heat pump, boiler, furnace, lighting, inside, outside lighting, water heating, and refrigerator upgrades in units. Spire also has a lot of these same rebates through their co-delivery with Evergy, but they also have the residential rebates ranging from $200 to $450 a rebate. They also have many commercial programs and some that are cooking focused as well. And again, they have the co-delivery with Evergy. So something that you all might have seen recently in the news due to COVID is LIHEAP, which is a low-income home energy assistance program. It's had a few different funding waves from COVID relief legislation from Congress that has been approved. And it is also in a very close relationship with the weatherization program. I kind of see them as hand in hand. So weatherization provides cost-effective, energy-efficient home improvements to low-income households outside of utilities. This is through the Department of Energy, the Department of Health and Human Services in Missouri oversees the program, and then community action agencies throughout Missouri, throughout Kansas, other states in the country get the money from their state energy office, and then they go work with those members of the community that qualify for the programs to give them their home improvement measures through energy efficiency. So the goal of the program is to lower utility bills and improve comfort, health, and safety in homes. So LIHEAP, Low-Income Weatherization Assistance Program, takes a whole house approach. They're going to try to maximize the cost effectiveness savings. So previously, when I talked about that benefit to cost ratio, when they're doing weatherization work, they're going to look at the same thing. They're going to do an audit of the property, and they're going to identify where they can maximize the savings in that unit or in that home. And to qualify, an applicant has to be at 150% of the federal poverty level. The most recent COVID Relief Act increased this qualification from 150% all the way up to 200%. And they also increased overall funding for the LIHEAP program. So LIHEAP is important here because that is where weatherization gets money from. Weatherization doesn't get its own separate pool of funding. States can take 15 to 25% of the LIHEAP budget and reappropriate it towards weatherization work. This is something that I personally am not too fond of. I think if we could take, 75% of the LIHEAP funding and putting it into weatherization would be fantastic, because LIHEAP is really just a Band-Aid. It's used to help in the winter or summer months for vulnerable populations to get a one-time large bill payment to reduce their outstanding utility bill that may be in arrears, might be close to disconnection, could be facing shutoff concerns, reconnection fees, so on. And it is good in that it helps individuals get out of those, high risk situations, but weatherization actually fixes the underlying issue, which is why I was saying LIHEAP's a Band-Aid, and that, you're not getting the surgery or other preferred method from your doctor to completely resolve the issue. It's just fixing in the short term. And the next year, they're going to have another really high bill in the summer or a really high bill in the winter, and they're going to need to apply for LIHEAP to cover that bill. While if we can weatherize these properties, they hopefully won't ever need to ask for help again, because that need is resolved. They're not wasting energy. They're properly using the energy that is being received in their home, and it's not getting leaked out through a window, out through a door, and so on. It would be inefficient. So I know that was a lot, so I'm just going to take a step back, open it up for questions if folks have some, and just talk about some exciting things that we're looking at for both Missouri and Kansas through the legislative session and through different regulatory happenings. So I'm sure you all have heard of Grain Bill Express at this point. It's been a hot topic for, I want to say, at least 5 years in both states. It's had various struggles between different regulatory bodies, such as the Public Service Commission and the Kansas Corporation Commission for approval. In Missouri, the Grain Belt Express has been approved by our commission. It originally was not, but the company Cleanline came back and said they would drop 500 megawatts of wind power in the state of Missouri if they're able to run this transmission line through from Kansas to Indiana to get our Midwest wind resource out to the East Coast to some of the large cities out there. So in Missouri, it's facing some legislative fights right now in the state legislature. So we are hopeful that it will not be further delayed and that this can be built, as it's going to bring a lot of energy savings to the Midwest and throughout the country. So we'll be seeing more on that. One thing that's popping up also in both states is securitization legislation. Securitization is not something that's new. We securitize as a country projects all the time. For municipalities, they'll securitize and get a bond out to get something built. And it's taking that thought process, that financial tool, and applying it to investor and utility fossil fuel plants. So we are taking securitized backed bonds to preemptively, prematurely close coal or natural gas or a nuclear plant, and to then use that money to reinvest in energy savings, such as if they had, a wind farm or a solar and battery storage system that could be at a lower cost per kilowatt hour than what the older fossil fuel plant might be at. And as we're continually seeing, coal in particular is very volatile. It's very, very expensive, and we have a lot of old plants in the region, so they're really not as cost competitive as new renewables can be. We've also seen issues with natural gas fluctuations in pricing, which a lot of states and a lot of parts of the country saw with the freeze we had in February that hit Texas extremely hard. And we even had rolling blackouts throughout Evergy service territory in both states. And a lot of that was from natural gas reliance. So we're hopeful this legislation can pass in both states so we can see this transition away from older fossil fuels towards energy savings, cost savings, renewables in the short term, instead of having to wait 20, 15 years for some of these coal contracts to end on their own. This is a way we can do something a little more proactive. Securitization's also been done in at least half the country. It hasn't always been for coal. It's been for water treatment plants and other kind of utility plant investments. So it's really not a new concept. It's just new to apply it towards fossil fuel plants. So one other big exciting thing in the news has been Evergy's Sustainable Transformation Plan. They currently have a filing before the Kansas Corporation Commission talking about the Sustainable Transformation Plan, their commitments to invest more in renewables and to move forward as a company. This all started because Evergy took some money they got from the changes to the Trump administration tax plan, and they used that money for stock buyback purposes, as opposed to investing it in infrastructure, investing it in transmission and new forms of generation that other utilities across the country did. So that strongly bothered the capitalist venture group, LIHEAP Management, who has a large stake in Evergy, created a shakeup in their executive team. They opened up their board, added some new members that LIHEAP liked, and Evergy was really facing a corporate takeover, but they replied with, okay, we're going to do the Sustainable Transformation Plan. We're going to more aggressively invest in renewables. Here's our plan to transition sooner. And that kind of stopped the takeover a little bit and has appeased a lot of those investors that they're going back in a good direction that they like to see based on other IOUs. Let's see, have another question here. State government in Missouri and Kansas supporting transition from fossil fuel to renewables. We'll find out. I really think the securitization piece is a huge part of if our government is actually supporting it. And also if utilities like Evergy that say they want to use securitization to be more renewably focused, that they're actually lobbying for it. And they are, Evergy is lobbying for it aggressively. But it's really, I see it as, to have that answer, we're gonna have to see what they do. So if securitization passes in Missouri and Kansas, then I will say yes, our leaders are committed towards getting us away from fossil fuels sooner than later. If it doesn't pass, I'm a lot less optimistic that our leaders are really taking this as a serious issue and a priority for them. So a lot of the efficiency programs I've talked about today, outside of the federally funded ones, such as LIHEAP and weatherization and the Spire program, they're all available because of a law in Missouri called the Missouri Energy Efficiency Investment Act. Kansas has a almost identical law called KEIA, the Kansas Energy Efficiency Investment Act. That has been on the books for, I want to say, at least 10 years now. But the utilities have not had a good time in getting their full program suites approved by the Kansas Corporation Commission. So we've really just seen a lack of energy efficiency investment in the state of Kansas, but we are hopeful that we'll have it soon. There was a draft last year, and there's a draft bill now this year to improve some of the cost effectiveness testing for KEIA to get these programs approved. And the latest version would also require a pay as you save program. And I'm going to talk about that right now. So pay as you save is a market-based system that allows utilities to invest in energy efficiency upgrades on the customer side of the meter and assure that they'll get net savings immediately. So I'll show this a little bit later in terms of what the program actually looks like from a utility standpoint. Ameren, Missouri is currently offering a PAYS program to their customers right now. It's up on their website, and I'll show you what that looks like. But Evergy and Spire are both currently evaluating and creating their own PAYS programs. Spire currently has a tariff before the Missouri Public Service Commission to get approval in their rate case to do a PAYS program. Evergy has already been required to do one, and they're actively working on it. The real kicker for this program is that the customer sees immediate savings, and they will be incurring less expense from energy due to upgrades that are made to their home as part of this program. So customers on average receive an immediate net savings of 20% of the estimated savings of a life of their home or unit that was upgraded. And the charge they will then receive for pays to pay back the utility has to be less than the savings they're getting. So in 2019, the Missouri Public Service Commission supported testimony that our office worked on and the Office of Public Counsel worked on to require Evergy to offer a program to customers. There was a study that the PSC required all of the investor-owned utilities in Missouri to conduct in 2018 looking at PAYS. And all of the studies concluded that this might work for all our customers, but it will definitely help our low-income customers. So because of that, Evergy was required to do a PAYS pilot program, and it's going to be lasting a full year as a $15 million budget. This has been severely delayed because of COVID. They were supposed to have this done originally by the end of 2020, but that was all delayed again because of other concerns they had. So this is what it looks like on Ameren's website. So they have the program information, they have an FAQ for more details. They also have the ability to contact them, a little description here, and they have the assessment form right here that any customer could click on to then get into their portal and start putting in their information. It's a 3-step process. First one, they'll review that form. If you submit it, then they'll do an in-home assessment to see what upgrades are possible, if any, that could qualify to create these level of savings for you. They will then have a qualified contractor come in and do the work. If the work is not done to satisfaction and they do an additional audit prior to it being live, that contractor is then held accountable to come back and do the job right to guarantee those savings, because this program does not work unless the savings are achieved. So the third part is you achieve these energy savings through the upgrades. Your overall bill is going to go down immediately. Even though you will have a new charge added, the overall savings and the benefit from that start on that first day of approval. This is all going to pan out. And from examples of what Ameren's doing with this program, they're doing light bulb installations, water heater blankets, air duct repairs, home insulation improvements, new HVAC systems, and weatherization upgrades. So that'd just be also general window, air stripping, door stripping to reduce air leaking out or exiting. Let's see. So here we go. Michael Miller has a question here. How will Evergy avoid drastic drops in its share price since it will be unable to pay dividends on assets being securitized? So that is a very good question. And they will be able to avoid that drastic drop because of the increased valuation from them building new assets. And they're going to be securitizing to the ratepayers. There's not going to be an impact in terms of dividends to the shareholders themselves from the securitization. It's going to be paid for by ratepayers who have to pay the costs from the utility anyways. So it's really looking at replacing these old and efficient plants with new, more affordable, better performing plants, which will be good in terms of Evergy's portfolio being a little more future focused and utility of the future, as opposed to being in the past and having a way to pay for it that isn't going to hurt their shareholders and should not impact their dividends. When we've seen impacts of securitized plants in other parts of the country, the utilities have done well in terms of their share price outcome. And this is something that LIHEAP management actually wants, and is something that also led to the takeover not being as hostile, because this appeased their concerns that with securitization, with a turnaround and a reinvestment in their generating assets, that they will be able to be performing at the level that shareholders want them to be. And if that is not the case, I expect we're going to see a lot of similar shareholder actions being taken if this doesn't pan out as they'd like it to. So really just been talking about energy efficiency this entire time. So real quickly, I just want to get through all of the renewable energy programs that are currently available. So one that needs a little bit of help from us is the solar subscription program that Evergy currently has. If you go to their website and just go under their smart energy, you'll be able to see subscription. For renewables, it's 94% subscribed, and only Missouri Evergy customers are eligible at this time. I will note that it's at a premium. You will not be saving any money whatsoever if you sign up to this program. Your bill will only go up, but you will be supporting a solar system in Evergy's territory that's going to be built, and you'll be getting a percentage of your power, depending how much you sign up for, directly from solar. So that is a way, if you're not a homeowner or property owner like myself, that you can still support solar and support Evergy's transition towards renewables. But it's not where we'd like it to be in terms of those energy savings. So if you want to save with solar, you can through net metering. So Kansans had been facing a demand charge through Evergy over the last 2 years. Thankfully, the Kansas Corporation Commission and the Kansas Supreme Court ruled against this, and now the demand charge is gone. That is not something that Kansas net metering owners are facing anymore. So that's very good for the Kansas solar market and Kansas in general that want to reduce their carbon footprint through their own solar system. Missouri does not have any charges, and we actually have a little bit of a sweeter deal because we have a rebate available still. It had started in 2017. We had some previously to that, but this latest round was in 2017, I believe. And there is roughly $1.6 million left available at 25 cents per watt for solar rebates if you are a Evergy Metro customer. If you are a broader Evergy customer not in the metro area, all those rebates have already been expended, which is unfortunate, but also great that we've seen that much investment in solar from this program. And I just did a little example here of what this would look like. The average solar home is an 8.2 kW solar system, and that would qualify you for $2,050 in rebate savings, which would be about a quarter to a fifth off of the overall price of that system, based on the average estimates that we're seeing. There's also a federal solar investment tax credit, ITC, that is still available. So you would also get some tax savings from investing in a solar system, and the tax credit is available in both states, while the rebate is very specifically to the Evergy Metro customers. There's also Evergy's Renewables Direct program. This is available to large customers in both Kansas and Missouri. They will be getting customers access to wind power that can provide a savings based on the actual production of those wind facilities. So this is actually a little bit better deal than the subscription program that residential customers can get. It works similar to a PPA, a power purchase agreement between the entities. And currently the city of Kansas City, Missouri is subscribed to the program and is going to have the city at 100% renewable generation due to this agreement. And they currently aren't there yet, but there is a plan in place to retrofit many of the streetlights that are not LED streetlights that the city owns. So that way they really will be 100%. This agreement happened about a year and a half ago. So they've still had that little bit of carbon footprint from those incandescent bulbs, those older bulbs that need to be replaced. So now there is a plan to move forward and replace those for the city. So once that's completed, we can, proudly say that the city is 100% renewable. And that is everything I have. So if you'd like to learn more, please check us out at renumo.org. Mosaves.com is another resource that we have. Those rebate slides I shared earlier in the presentation were pulled directly from the website. So if you want to learn how you can save on your utility bills, get some energy efficiency in your life, I would check out Mosaves. Unfortunately, it is only in the state of Missouri. So if you're outside of Missouri, it won't do a lot of good for you, but could give you an example of what your utility should be offering if they don't have anything. So let's see, one more question here. So from Victor Poland, how is Evergy providing the rebate to their solar customers? Is it an actual check back to the customer or is it a bill credit? That was a very good question. So it's actually a check back, and all utilities in the state of Missouri, all investor-owned utilities that have a solar rebate do it this way too. So you'll just get a check back sent to you for the amount of the rebate. And the only bill credit process of it is the actual net metering itself. So whatever you produce within that month will then be offset from your usage. If you produce more than you use, you will then get a credit. But the credit, I believe, is at an avoided cost as opposed to the retail rate, which the generation to usage is. So we really don't have a great option for those rolling credits. And that's something that we at Renew Missouri and other advocates for solar would like to see. So you can really, bank up your production and use that in the offsetting months. So like when you're overproducing in summer, you could then use those extra credits for your winter bill when your production might be a little lower when we have a lot of the gloomy weather out. But that is another question. Looks like they only pay you back 0.22, 20 cents per kilowatt hour, which is so much lower than the average. Yeah, so that's if you're getting the avoided cost rate. So they have to pay you back that average 12 cents per kilowatt hour. They have to pay you at that for your actual production to usage. But yeah, when it's looking beyond that usage, yeah, the conversion is not great, which is why we'd like it to be at the retail rate for the credits and the ability to have an annual rollover for them. So it'll really be even out through the entire year. Is that going to change anytime soon? I hope so. In Missouri, it's probably a lot less likely. In Kansas, I would say I'm a little more optimistic that that could change. But one way that you can get around that as a customer is if you have a storage system. If you have a battery system, you can bank that extra power yourself and then just use it within your home to get that benefit when you need it. And you'll have to be a little more creative about it, but that's a way you can get that true value and true benefit from your PV system. But I'm also getting very close to my time. I don't see any other questions in there. So I think I'm going to wrap it at that. Thank you all very much for tuning in for the questions. Really appreciate your participation. Thank you to Bob and to the Greater Council of Kansas City for putting this on, and see you all soon. Thanks.